And day 1433 of the Trump administration, 29 days until the inauguration of Joe Biden as our 46th president. With his time in office running out, Donald Trump has issued his first big wave of pardons and commutations. The list includes convicted liars, murderers, and corrupt politicians. In what appears to be a move to chip away at the Mueller investigation, Trump has given full pardons to George Papadopoulos, a foreign policy advisor to the Trump 2016 campaign, who, by the way, pleaded guilty to lying to the FBI. He also gave a full pardon to Alex van der Zwaan, who had worked with the Trump former campaign chairman Paul Manafort, also pleaded guilty to lying to Mueller's team. Then there are three crooked former Republican members of Congress, all three of whom were put away by Trump's own Justice Department. There's Steve Stockman of Texas, convicted on charges of fraud and money laundering. There's Duncan Hunter of California, who pleaded guilty to misusing campaign funds. And there's Chris Collins of upstate New York, the first Trump supporter in Congress, who pleaded to lying to the FBI and conspiring to commit securities fraud. He was the one who, as a guest at the annual congressional picnic, summer of 2017, was caught on camera phoning insider stock tips to his son from the South Lawn of the White House, according to the feds. Also on this initial pardon list, 4 military contractors who worked for Blackwater and were all convicted of killing 14 unarmed Iraqi civilians in Baghdad in '07. The dead included 2 children. Just minutes after those pardons were announced, Trump then posted a video in which he seemed to threaten to veto the massive $900 billion COVID relief bill that Congress just passed 24 hours ago.
Throughout the summer, Democrats cruelly blocked COVID relief legislation in an effort to advance their extreme left-wing agenda and influence the election. The bill they are now planning to send back to my desk is much different than anticipated. It really is a disgrace. It's called the COVID relief bill, but it has almost nothing to do with COVID. I'm asking Congress to amend this bill and increase the ridiculously low $600 to $2,000 or $4,000 for a couple. I'm also asking Congress to immediately get rid of the wasteful and unnecessary items from this legislation and to send me a suitable bill, or else the next administration will have to deliver a COVID relief package, and maybe that administration will be me, and we will get it done.
Trump had been expected to sign the nearly 6,000-page relief bill before leaving for Mar-a-Lago for the Christmas holiday. He was largely absent for the bipartisan negotiations. He never named a dollar amount that Americans should receive. The bill passed both houses with veto-proof majorities. This will get interesting because it provides aid for millions of Americans whose lives have been upended by this pandemic. Trump later followed that up with another video in which he revisited his falsehoods about the outcome of our election.
We won this election by a magnificent landslide, and the people of the United States know it. All over, they're demonstrating.
Folks do not decide who the next president of the United States of America will be. We the people decide.
This is the president's loyal base. Not only do they still believe in him, but you still believe he won.
Absolutely. No doubt.
They also believe, without presenting evidence, that he was robbed of an election victory.
I felt that the Supreme Court should have reheard the case.
Among the protesters today, this group of Proud Boys. They say they're anticipating about 700 people here and the possibility of clashes with other groups. Some members of the far-right group raised Confederate flags, while others flashed a hand signal associated with white power. Before the march, Enrico Tarrio, one of the group's leaders, visited the White House. A White House spokesman denied that there was a meeting with the president, insisting that Tarrio took a tour that was open to the public. Are you going to meet with the president? That's the rumor.
No, I'm not going to meet with the president.
There were counter-protesters today, but police say the Trump rally remained mostly peaceful. This is the second largest rally here by Trump supporters since Election Day. Jeff Begay, CBS News, Washington.
Counter-protesters and police. 4 people were in fact stabbed and are in critical condition. 1 officer has minor injuries. In all, 8 people were taken to the hospital and 33 were arrested. In Washington state this weekend, also 1 person was shot in amid pro-Trump and anti-Trump clashes. Police saying the suspect was arrested. This is all coming the same day as the leader of the Proud Boys, a far-right extremist group with ties to white nationalism, shared photos of himself at the White House. Enrique Tarrio posted that he was invited, but a White House spokesperson says he was actually on a public tour and not invited by the president. But the president does not discourage any of this behavior. If anything, he actually fuels it. Here he is just today as he continues to push his baseless claims that Joe Biden did not win this election.
No, I worry about the country having an illegitimate president. That's what I worry about. A president that lost, and lost badly. This wasn't like a close election. You look at Georgia. We won Georgia big. We won Pennsylvania big. We won Wisconsin big. We won it big. But we won all of these states.
In reality, and here's a fact check, Trump won none of those states. None of them.
They're angry. They're fearful. We cannot allow a completely fraudulent election to stand.
Meanwhile, Axios is reporting that Trump has been turning on his own advisors. Quote, targets of his outrage include Vice President Pence, Chief of Staff Mark Meadows, White House counsel Pat Cipollone, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell. Trump thinks everyone around him is weak, stupid, or disloyal, and increasingly seeks comfort only in people who egg him on to overturn the election results. We cannot stress enough how unnerved Trump officials are by the conversations unfolding inside the White House. That last sentence from Jonathan Swan should be a wake-up call. Those conversations include efforts to spread disinformation about Dominion voting systems' so-called involvement in Biden's win. Today, an official with Dominion Voting Systems who has gone into hiding after becoming the subject of conspiracy theories on the right since the election was held is now suing the Trump campaign, a number of campaign surrogates, and pro-Trump media networks alleging defamation. Amid all this, the incoming president today tried to occupy the leadership role that Trump has essentially vacated as he fixates on his campaign to overdo the election. Joe Biden spoke today in a year's end pre-holiday address, offering a sobering look at the challenges ahead in fighting the pandemic while slamming Trump's handling of the latest suspected Russian cyber attack.
One thing I promise you about my leadership during this crisis, I'm going to tell it to you straight. I'm going to tell you the truth. And here's the simple truth. Our darkest days in the battle against COVID are ahead of us, not behind us. This attack constitutes a grave risk to our national security. It certainly fits Russia's long history of reckless, disruptive cyber activities. But the Trump administration needs to make an official attribution. This assault happened on Donald Trump's watch, when he wasn't watching.
Relief bill. It took 9 months to get this bill for all of its shortcomings and all of its failures. It's the only help the American people have had against the devastation of COVID for 9 months. And now he's saying that he's going to veto it. There is some nuance to it with him saying that he wants a larger size payment to the American people, which is something that Democrats argued for at every step of the process. And now House Democrats say, okay, well, if that's what he wants, we'll provide him with that. I wonder just what you make of this very last minute scramble of what we thought was going to proceed here with this relief bill.
I kept thinking tonight, well, these pardons are an attack on our very democracy. This is an attack on every American. People who are struggling to get by right now, out of work, lose unemployment. The unemployment is going to basically end the day after Christmas if this doesn't pass. People who are out of work, people who need the help. The vaccine distribution, Rachel, is in this $30 billion. These vaccines are not going to just parachute into a small town in the middle of Minnesota. We need the help for the states to get the vaccines out. And he is literally undermining our entire effort on testing and vaccine distribution. This was a hard-fought negotiation. Of course, you're right. Democrats were pushing for more funds for the individual payments. But in the end, this was a negotiation. And he knows very well we're reaching the end here with the unemployment, with our small businesses can't take it anymore. One Yelp study early in the year showed we were having 800 small businesses close a day. And there's over $300 billion to help small businesses in this bill. It is the second biggest stimulus in the history of America. And for him to turn this down, obviously we have the votes to override his veto in the houses. We have those votes. But he should not be doing this right now when his own Treasury Secretary, Steve Mnuchin, was involved in the negotiations from beginning to end. He is literally trying to burn this country down on his way out, as I said at the beginning. And all we can do is push and make it very clear as we go into these Senate races in Georgia, Rachel, which party has people's back and which party is in the White House.
But I want to ask you about another topic, because we've got about 12 different breaking news topics tonight, including the fact that the president was supposed to be signing this bill that took months to arrive at. You in the House had finished this bill on October 1st. We finally got a deal with the Senate. $600 payments to individuals. The president apparently doesn't like that idea. He's calling for $2,000 payments to individuals and $4,000 to a married couple. We don't know what this means. We don't know whether that means he's not signing the bill or you got to get back to the drawing board. But Nancy Pelosi has said, bring it. We're ready to do $2,000 a person and vote on this on Thursday. What are you hearing about this?
Well, look, we wanted larger checks all along. We wanted a larger package all along. We recognize the immense need in the country. People are lining up in food lines miles long. But the Republicans wouldn't go along with it. Mitch McConnell wouldn't take it up. Kevin McCarthy wouldn't support it. And Donald Trump was missing in action. He delegated to Mnuchin to be his negotiator. Well, we hammered out a deal, the most that we could get out of Mitch McConnell. And now, after it's passed, the president suddenly takes an interest. It's just appalling because people are counting on that money right now. But we will take up a bill by unanimous consent, the speaker has announced, that will put them to the test. You want larger checks? So do we. Let's see the proof that you're serious about this. This is not just some gimmick.
Democrats welcoming the president's call for higher relief checks and calling out that hypocrisy. The Democrats spent months pushing for at least $2,000 checks, which was met by opposition from Republicans, including from the president himself. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi tweeted yesterday, Democrats are ready to bring this to the floor this week by unanimous consent. Let's do it, she said of the president's idea. Senator Chuck Schumer weighed in, adding, maybe Trump can finally make himself useful and get Republicans not to block it again. Let's bring in MSNBC correspondent Garrett Hake, NBC News and MSNBC contributor Shauna Thomas, and senior political correspondent for the Washington Examiner, David Drucker. Good morning to you all. Garrett, let me start with you as you cover Capitol Hill. What was the reaction from both sides yesterday when President Trump released this video and totally blew up this deal?
Yeah, I mean, this could not have been a bigger debacle for Republicans, who barely were able to get this bill over the finish line in the Senate with the $600 checks that were in it. Remember, everyone left town after this bill passed. I was on the Hill all day yesterday. I did not see a single other lawmaker around. They fired off their press releases in the middle of the night before, praising the bipartisan nature of this deal, which 92 senators voted for, and then they left. For Democrats, they're effectively dancing in the streets at this. For number one, the potential option to actually get these larger checks across the finish line. Rashida Tlaib last night tweeted a picture of the one-page amendment that will be filed here to try to up this number to $2,000, or, barring that, to completely embarrass all the Republicans who ran on and talked about wanting smaller checks or no checks at all. I'm thinking about Ron Johnson, the senator from Wisconsin, who twice stood up in the Senate to block proposals to raise the check amount to $1,200. And this doesn't even get into Georgia, which you played that ad at the top of the show. David Perdue, Kelly Loeffler needed this. They needed to run on a successful COVID relief bill. Now that's completely hung up. And I really can't emphasize enough the point about the president being MIA in the production of this bill. You know, he put none of his political capital on the line to push for this at any time. Now, this is not someone who's ever been particularly interested in the legislative process, but he was totally hands-off here. And if he had released this video, if this video was stuck in his drafts folder on Twitter and he'd released it a week ago, he might have gotten bigger checks into the bill. And now we're in this bizarre limbo with Congress essentially home, going to try to jam Republicans and see if maybe we can, you know, if Congress can get something else done here, if they can raise the number here, or if this is just going to be kind of a tantrum thing online.
So, Garrett, what happens next, though? You started to answer the question. The senators are home. Congress is gone. They feel like they had the deal. They just needed the president to put his stamp on it. So what happens at this point if the president says, I'm not signing that bill? Is everybody coming back to try to get to $2,000 on the checks? Is that realistic?
So the president's in a weird spot of his own making here. Because of the hanging threat to veto the NDAA, Congress is never going fully out of session over the holidays. They're going to stay in pro forma. That means one member essentially will open the floor, close the floor every couple of days. The next time that happens is Thursday morning, Christmas Eve. The House is going to be in session for just a few minutes. They will try to pass this by unanimous consent in the House, then likely again in the Senate a couple days. All it takes is one Republican, or anyone else for that matter, I suppose, to show up and object to that unanimous consent request. But who's going to be the Republican to stick their neck out, come back to Washington over the holidays, and say, no, Mr. President, we're not doing this?
Garrett Haig, thank you so much for your coverage this morning.
All right, my friends, that wraps it up for another episode of Stirring It Up with Tia Monique. So, what do you think about this lame duck president? Is he giving you what you need? Please express yourself in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like and subscribe button to become a friend. Until next time, bye.